Now, the next person we've got speaking is Ian Soars. Ian is Managing Director of Fegans. If you don't know about Fegans, they're a charity. They help young people with counselling, but they also work on the mental health agenda as well and provide mental health support across the UK. And they also work alongside churches, helping churches work in family hubs. So Ian, over to you. I think you're going to help us sort of think about what we need to do if we want to get involved.
Yeah, Ian, thanks so much for talking with us today. Can you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and also just go straight into explaining the wonderful family hubs that Fegans runs in preschools?
Hopefully you can all hear me. My name is Ian Soars, Managing Director of Fegans. We're part of Spurgeons now, we've just been acquired. But Fegans' speciality is family hubs, and we deliver that in partnership with schools and churches across the southeast. Our main thing that we do in terms of services is as you just heard, we counsel children, so children with suicidal ideation, and eating disorders, anxiety, depression, those sorts of things. And we counsel about 500 children every week, predominantly in schools and churches. We also do parenting, and you'll find a common theme with family hubs is all about parents. Why? Because if you get to the parents, you can actually resolve a whole load of pain very quickly and often actually very cost effectively. The third thing we do, we have preschools. I'll come back to those in a moment, in obedience to you, Catherine. And then the final thing is we have a big digital arm, which we might have time to talk about a bit later, where we take a lot of the expertise that we have and then we overlay it over all of our services. But in terms of all of those services, we deliver those services, but we do them in partnership with local churches. And the whole aim of that is that we can maybe do some of the heavy lifting, some of the more complex work that churches might find, actually take these big steps into your community. If we can do that, and then we can release churches to do relational work and parenting work. So instead of working with substance abuse or those sorts of things, we'll pick up that. You do community space. In terms of the preschools, we have more than one model of family hub, and that's part of the joy of this conversation, and also part of the complexity is all of us are always thinking, what is a family hub? And actually, it's a bit of a movable feast. But one of the models we have is we have two preschools. One is based in a church, one based on site in a school. Both have good church connections. The preschool, we do this intentionally. It's like a nursery preschool, but still Ofsted regulated and so on. But it works 9 to 5 and it's term time only. And that means it gravitates to, for preschools tend to be gravitating to areas of high need. And in that context, it means you've got a resource made of families who are actually on site and needing support and care, which is great. But also on site, you've got a load of experts, trained early years practitioners that we double train, some in domestic violence, some in parenting, some in just working alongside with autistic or kids with additional needs. So you can get these services bolted on. And then on top of that preschool, we then bolt on parenting, formal parenting, and we do counselling both for kids and for their parents. We then partner with the local churches to do Zoom classes. So you've got a real holistic service there, right in the heart of the community where they need it.
Brilliant. I mean, you've reflected on what churches can think about in terms of their routes forward. We're at the point in the event where we've heard lots of stories of how people are working. What would you say are the sort of the possible routes? How would you present it?
So let me start by saying I think my charity is sensational, but I can tell you this: there's only one bride of Christ, and it's the Christian church. And actually, however good our charities are, we can't solve these issues. And actually, what my hope is, my passion before Christ is not that we come away with more family hubs, that we empower you guys. But in that journey that I've been taking along with my charity and colleagues and so on about partnering with churches, this is what we've found. And I'm going to, just for today's sake, I'm going to wrap it up in who, why, what, when, where. And the first thing you've got to start off with is why. Why are you doing this? And for me, this is a theological question. Get your theology straight. Because actually, when you do a family hub, it can be really hard work. Some of the things you will see and hear will be heartbreaking. And there are many tears shed in anyone who's working in a family hub on a weekly basis. But you might say, well, my theology is going to be based around, I don't know, the 10 Commandments, the second commandment, to love your neighbor as yourself. And we partner with a church that wants to give away half of its money. It's nearly there. So whatever it receives in income, it then invests into its local community. Your theology and your why might be something about Revelation 21. We want to see the kingdom of heaven come here on earth. Your theology might be about religion, faith without works is dead. And we really want to show that our faith is alive by doing works. Or it might be something as simple as Deborah, which is from Judges. And she said, there was village life had ceased until I, Deborah, a woman, a mother, arose in Israel. And your theology, that if you hold on to that why are you doing this? That would get you through some tough times. And then the next thing is vision, where you're headed. So if you know why you're doing it, what's happening today, where you're going. And actually a lot of people, again, vision might be something like, we want to be the hands and feet of God. We want, when people see us, they want to know what our God is like. If they look at the work we do, and you've heard time and time again from incredible practitioners like Rachel and Jenny, and you're going to hear it from Avril, it's all relationship. If we demonstrate unconditional love, then your vision might be saying, then they'll understand what our Father in heaven is like. You might be old school, and your vision might be about, well, you want to go back to the Middle Ages where the church was the center of community. The church was the center. If you want to get educated, go to the church. You want to get healed, go to the church. And if you want a good glass of mead, then you go to the church. And today that might be children's counseling and a cappuccino, but you get the idea. That might be your vision, or it might be just to be the heart of God in the heart of your community. So once you've got the theology right and where you're headed, I love Rachel was talking about, what have you got in your hands? And that refers to the question that, as you all know, that God asked Moses, because Moses says, you can't send me. You can't send me. And then God says, what do you have in your hands? And then you just look at this and he said, well, I've got a staff. And this is the staff that parted the seas, that turned all that stuff. But he started off with, well, I'm just a shepherd. That's all I know. And I've got, because we're part of Spurgeons, I've got Spurgeons like book here. And Spurgeon says this, the quote for the day, self is the worst enemy a Christian has. And I assure you, just as Rachel did, that if you begin to love your community, that's a great place to start.
Brilliant. I mean, that's really inspiring. What would you say are the sort of the benefits to the church of getting involved in this work? As you say, there's a lot of pain, but the aggro and the effort of engaging with your local authority, it can be really hard work. What are the benefits? Why is it worth it?
So I used to work in a corporate environment, and I used to ask this question of people I was working with: why are we here? Why are we here? Because if you can't answer that question, and I think a lot of churches right now existentially are saying, why are we here? And we'll all be familiar with the scripture in Joel 2 where he says, without a vision the people perish. But actually, I don't know if you've ever thought about unpicking that, but it's about saying, well, actually, if you don't have a vision, you don't actually die. So what is he trying to get at? And for me, I was talking to a senior church leader in the Church of England yesterday, and they were talking about in the particular region of England, actually the church is in significant decline. And I would point to Joel 2. And for me, the heart of this for any church is to say, we begin to answer this question. I know why we are here. We are here to demonstrate what God looks like in our community. So actually, you begin to find not just that your church gets galvanized, like really you become alive with it, but the faith in, belief in action, as the Salvation Army would say, begins to yield, results with real dividends. And actually, rather than just being a couple of, hours on a Sunday morning, we're beginning to do so. I love Rachel when she says, Sunday is our quietest day. That is the church in action. And I think in terms of morale, in terms of vision, in terms of purpose, in terms of meaning, in terms of releasing calling, in terms of raising leadership, this is one of the key things that all of us are facing right now in terms of what's happening in our nation.
Great. That's really thought-provoking stuff. I'm glad we've got a Q&A panel coming up so that people can ask you some questions about this. So brilliant. Thanks so much though, Ian. And back to Paula. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Ian, indeed. And thank you, Ian, as well, for that sort of theological underpinning to all of this as well. We've been having a lot of conversation about the practical around it, but just to hear that other reminder about that theological underpinning of why we are doing what we're doing, what our vision is really helpful and thoughtful for us.